All right, welcome everyone to the fantastic DIFIABA education. We are live now and we are starting off our educational session. And I'm very glad to introduce DIFIABA's education, head of education, Frank, who will be teaching you everything you need to know about DIFIABA. So please, Frank, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Merit. I see there are 45 people signed in on Zoom, and there are probably at least 25 or 30 people in person at your education center. I hope everyone has a glass of wine and maybe some snacks, because we're going to go into some of the features and benefits of Charcoalite. And so I think what we'll do is maybe for the first 30 minutes, we will talk about the Charcoalite product knowledge and what sets it apart and makes it different from other lightening systems on the market. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a technique. I have my lovely model here. I have named her Bridget. And on Bridget, I did an express balayage service using our Charcoalite. So on this mannequin, I use Charcoalite lightening paste and the anti-brass shampoo and conditioner. I did not tone my mannequin. And as you know, it's very difficult to get a mannequin this light. So I was able to do this, obviously, because it's a mannequin. I used 40 volume. On human hair, I would probably have chosen 30 volume. But as you can see, she has this beautiful beige blonde color, using just the anti-brass shampoo and conditioner as my toning system. So I'm going to show you how I achieved this look. I have her younger sister here, who I'm going to attempt to recreate this model on this mannequin and show you the technique. I call it express balayage because it's kind of like a shortcut to balayage. I know that there are so many ways to do a balayage, and we've probably all taken at least 50 balayage classes. So I don't think there's anything new to learn with balayage, but maybe what I'd like to provide is a fresh perspective on how to make it more simple, right? Because sometimes we book 3 hours for this service, and we can really do it in a quicker way if we think about it in a more condensed way. So this technique, I can probably do this application in 30 minutes. It might take a little longer when you're first learning how to do it, because it is a little more abstract, say. It's not quite paint by number like most balayages, like V's and W's, and this is a little different approach. It's more of a shortcut. So I hope to inspire you in some way to look at balayage a little more simply. But more importantly, let's go right into the features and benefits of the Charcoalite collection. I don't know if I can ask, if I ask questions, it might eat up too much time during the presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my team there at Salon Shop to take some questions and answers and field them field the questions for me. And then we can answer some of the questions as we go along. The service manual that you see on the screen, can everyone see that? I'm assuming yes. So this is the Charcoalite service manual. It is available digitally, and Merit can, I'm getting all these hellos. Merit can provide this for you guys at the end of this virtual if you need this to refer to. This is going to be sort of the guide for Charcoalite. It gives you all of the features and benefits. So let's talk about Charcoalite as a system. I like to talk about as a system because it's not just the lightening paste. It's the lightening paste, it's the post-blonding shampoo, and the post-blonding conditioner. And the shampoo and conditioner are very important to use the day that you lighten the hair, but they're equally as important to send home with your customer. So they come in a larger size, a 20 ounce for the back bar, and then they come in an 8.5 ounce for the retail. So because Charcoalite is a non-oxidative toning solution, it needs to be maintained weekly or bi-weekly. So once a week or twice a week, because the toning value is progressive, right? The more you use it, the more permanent that toning happens. It is non-oxidative, so it doesn't, we all know oxidative toners like your demi-permanent colors. You mix your color with the developer and it explodes that molecule, so it anchors inside the hair. This is non-oxidative, so it actually goes in and fills it in a progressive way. And it's slightly different from purple shampoo or violet shampoo, and I'll explain that as I go along. So that being said, I'm going to move right to the next slide and I'll talk about what we're going to cover today. So what we're covering today is how to safely achieve cool blondes. What is the technology? That's the most important part. How does it work? What the product range is, meaning what they are, what the 3 products are that make up the system, and then the lightening and mixing it with our developer and what to expect. And then I'll go into the hands-on. So you see where it says, let's do it and post-service and maintenance. I'm going to do the let's do it part. I'm going to do the hands-on. And then the post-service and maintenance is the anti-brass shampoo and conditioner. So I'll talk about those after I do my hands-on presentation. I'll talk about post-service and we'll also go into Q&A. So 30 minutes of this product knowledge, 30 minutes of me applying foils and doing a balayage, and then 30 minutes of questions and answers and post-service and maintenance. So that being said, I'm going to go right into the next slide and how to safely achieve cool blondes and what is the Charcoalite technology. So as you can see on, I guess on my left, I'm not sure if it's your left or your right, the hair detail under a microscope before lightening and then after lightening. As you know, the cuticles always get roughed up during lightening, and it's really difficult to achieve cool blondes without eliminating yellow and without roughing up the cuticle. So Charcoalite's technology is designed for cool tone lifting and also neutralizing the warmth while you're lifting. So if you see the model on the bottom, there's the before picture where she had a level 6 with some sort of caramel highlights. And then you can see we did a very heavy highlight and balayage combination on the model. And at the end result, it was a single application of the Charcoalite lightening paste. And then we also used the shampoo and the conditioner, which is the anti-brass collection, as her toner. So that's how we achieve that. And just to give you an example, it's exactly how I achieved the color of my hair. As you can see, my hair is pretty dark. And so I bleached my hair probably about a month ago because I wanted it to match my beard. And so now my roots are coming in and I have that perfect sort of root shadow, but I've never toned my hair. I've only bleached it once with the Charcoalite lightener. And then I've used the shampoo and the conditioner, the anti-brass collection, the day of. Once a week or twice a week, I will shampoo my hair. I will put the anti-brass conditioner on and let it sit for about 20 minutes. And so it helps me maintain that sort of platinum white color. Some days, if I leave it on longer, it turns a little silvery, almost like with the bluish hue, but it kind of fades right out. The bluish hue fades right out. And it just stays sort of platinum and almost silver. So how does Charcoalite achieve that? Here's how it works. The name is a little deceiving because a lot of people think Charcoalite means that charcoal is the active ingredient, but it's actually only one of them. The first active ingredient is the activated charcoal powder. That is a plant-derived charcoal powder. And what it does is it removes impurities and buildup that are trapped in between the cuticle layer of the hair. So for instance, people that have blonde hair or people that have curly hair use a lot of maintenance and aftercare products like serums, shine sprays, heat protection, heavy-duty moisturizing conditioners to make their hair smooth. And a lot of those products have silicone or dimethicone in them. And that tends to build up on the hair. It gets trapped in between the gaps of the cuticle layer of the hair. So the activated charcoal is designed to remove the buildup, allowing the lightener to get in faster and more efficiently. And that's going to provide an optimal scenario to lighten the hair. Then the second active ingredient is the powerful gray graphite pigments. So what we discovered was on most lighteners that try to cancel yellow and cancel orange, they're either a light blue powder or a light violet powder. So they're designed for the powder to have a pigment that's going to cancel the brass. But we wanted to make something more heavily pigmented than a traditional blue powder or a traditional violet powder. So the chemist that we worked with discovered that if we use granulated or crystallized graphite, graphite is a mineral found in volcanic regions. And because it is such a strong mineral, it can withstand the high alkaline environment of lightening. Lightening hair lighteners, all of them are very high in alkaline. And when you add color to a bleach mixture, it cannot withstand that action of the alkaline. Graphite is born in that environment, so it can live in that environment. So because of that, we chose to use crystalline graphite pigments to color our lightener. That's what gives Charcoalite its dark gray color, is crystalline graphite. And graphite is gray, but it's also really blue gray. So it's blue and it's gray, which means that it's blue and then it's blue and violet together. So blue, blue, violet gives you two blues and a violet, which then helps you neutralize red, orange, and yellow while you're lifting. So the activated charcoal removes the buildup so that lightener can get inside faster. And then that graphite pigment is neutralizing orange and yellow during the lifting stages. So you're ending up with a cooler reflection of lift when you're lifting, because you're neutralizing during the lift. It's almost like you're toning the hair while you're toning each level of brassiness while you're lifting, so that by the time you arrive at a level 9, you're almost pure white. And then of course we have our Restorative Bond Plex, and our Restorative Bond Plex is a blend of oils that are naturally derived, and they come from a plant called chicory root. What we discovered was that chicory root has a blend of oils that are very high in moisture and lipids and antioxidants. So the Bond Plex in our lightener is designed to encapsulate moisture, and it also wraps around or protects the disulfide bonds, which are a chain of bonds that hold the hair strand together. So it sort of encapsulates the disulfide chain, and it encapsulates the moisture or the lipids that are present inside the cortex. While all that lightener is exploding, this sort of adds a buffer to protect that. So in the lightener, our Bond Plex works as a protector or a bond protector. For that reason, we do not recommend adding your favorite bond builder to our product, because when you see the Charcoalite in its packaging, it comes in a bag. Typically, the bag is very firm and it's hard almost, right? It's a lightening paste that's probably about 3/4 of the way paste, and 1/4 of it is the oil. When you receive your bag, it's very important to massage the bag, because what you're doing is you're softening the product, because you're blending the oil with the paste to create the perfect measurement or the perfect ratio of oil per paste. So when you normally add an outside bond builder to lighteners, you measure the exact amount per scoops of lightener. This is pre-measured. So when you massage it, you're distributing the bond builder evenly with the paste to deliver the right amount of bond protection per application. If you add an outside bond builder to our lightener, you're going to throw off that ratio and dilute the strength of the lightener. So we do not recommend, we cannot guarantee the same results if you add a bond builder to it. We have it built in already, and that's why our product is ready to go without adding anything else. So it's the activated charcoal, the graphite gray pigments, and the Restorative Bond Plex that sets Charcoalite apart from all other lighteners on the market. Those are the 3 features and benefits that are different from every other lightener. That being said, Charcolite is a 9-level lift lightener. So if you're using a traditional high lift that's like 10 levels, that's going to be a higher ammonia content. Ours is a 9-level lift because in most cases, 9-level lift is all you need. So that being said, if you're starting at a level 3 or a 4, can you expect to be platinum? Maybe not in one application, but certainly in 2, right? But it's optimal for levels 6, 7, and 8 to get them platinum in one single gesture. And that would be using the timing that follows all the rules of chemistry as any other 9-level lift lightener. People think that Charcolite is a unicorn. And I tell people it's magical, but it's not a unicorn because it still has to follow the same scientific rules of color theory. If I want to lift 9 levels and I'm starting at a 6 or a 7, I can achieve that, but it's going to take some time, and I prefer to go low and slow. So that being said, I'm going to ask for the next slide. So here we are. So what are the product range? We have the lightening paste, and it comes in 2 sizes. We have the 250 grams or the 500 grams. That equals either a half a pound or a pound. And then we have our post-service and maintenance. It's the same product that you're using post-blonding, and you're also sending your customers home with this. It's a neutralizing care regimen for all hair types. It comes in the 600 milliliters or the 250 milliliters. That equals out to be 20 ounces or 8.5 ounces. And then our developers come in a range of 5 volume all the way up to 40. Typically on any of your highlights, your balayages, or your what we call global lightening or double processes, 20 and 30 normally do the trick, right? We never recommend using anything higher than 30 volume on the scalp because the scalp is subject to the radiant body heat from your scalp. So that first ½ inch will always lighten more efficiently. 30 volume should do it. If you should need to use 40 volume, it's usually in the cold zone. So if I'm doing a balayage on darker levels, like a 5 or a 6, I might choose to use 40 volume here in the cold shaft area, and then a lower developer towards the ends. So that's why we recommend you could use 40 volume with Charcolite, but most times it's not necessary because it is a 9-level lift lightener, and most people with 9-level lift lighteners, 40 volume is pretty strong. It's only for really coarse or really dense hair. But if you look at the graph underneath our picture, here's a model that says traditional lightener and then Charcolite lightener. So if you look at the little graph at the bottom where it goes from 2 levels to 10 levels, the very bottom graph is the difference between Charcolite and traditional lighteners. Lighteners that do not have this graphite pigment do not neutralize during lifting. So when I get to a level 7, 8, 9, and 10 with Charcolite, you can see there's a cooler reflection because of that blue-gray pigment. So that's the difference in the way the results are going to turn out. At a level 9 and 10, you're going to have more yellow with a traditional lightener. And then at a level 9 and 10 with Charcolite, you're going to have a much cooler result. We always say in color theory, most educators I've heard use this phrase, you always want to, when you're trying to achieve a platinum tone, like my hair, you want to lift the hair to the color of the inside of a banana, which is pretty much almost white, pale yellow white. That's what a level 10 is, the inside of a banana. If you do not lift all the way to that color, then you're only going to tone at the level you're at. So if I use Charcolite collection and the shampoo and the conditioner at a level 8, or if I only lifted my customer to a level 8 or a 9, and then I use the shampoo, I'm really just going to get a beige reflection, which is what happened on my mannequin here. As you can see, on some of her darker shades, it's more beige. And on some of her lighter shades, it's more platinum. So your lift is directly related to the amount of cancelization that you're getting. You can see in here, I have more beige and honey tones, but down in here, I have more platinumy tones because her ends lightened a little more efficiently. When I hold her back here, you can see that a little better. She's more beige and honey here, and she's more white down on the ends. So that's a perfect example of you have to lift. You cannot change the rules of science. You have to lift your customer all the way up to a 9 or a 10 to get that cool tone. As you can see on our model, her lighter pieces became more whiter and platinum. Her darker pieces just turned more of a gray color. That being said, we'll go to the next slide. So the lightening and the developer. So charcoal light can be used as a double process blonding, a foil highlighting, a color correction, or a freehand painting. The caveat with freehand painting is you want to keep in mind charcoal light is not a clay lightener or a traditional clay lightener. It stays wet. It does not dry out and encapsulate. So when you balayage or when you do freehand painting, you really want to be careful not to have it sit on top of hair that you're not trying to lighten, because it may or may not bleed depending on how careful you are. I typically like to do my balayages with charcoal light on a foil or on a piece of paper or like a mesh, or I put plastic in between them. I prefer foil because it's more stiff and easier to work with. Mixing is very important. For on the scalp applications, you can use anywhere from 5 to 30 volume. We never recommend 40 on the scalp. And then for off the scalp applications, you can use any of them all the way up to 40. The ratio is never negotiable. It's always 1 part lightener to 2 parts developer. That creates the perfect consistency, and it creates the perfect amount of 9 levels of lift. If you change the ratio of developer per lightener, you're going to change the strength of it. And so, for instance, I used to think that I knew better than, anybody else. So I would say, oh, well, if I do equal parts, it'll make it stronger. Doesn't always work that way, especially in our case, because of the other ingredients. It throws off the ratios. So it's always the lightener needs 2 parts developer to ammoniate its action. So always 1 part developer, 1 part lightener, 2 part developer. And then application, obviously, if you apply it to dry hair, you're going to get better lift. If you do it with a wet balayage, you can expect less lift because the water molecules that are present inside the hair will dilute its strength. But in some cases, that's not a big deal. Sometimes I'll do on darker levels, I'll do this beautiful caramel or honey balayage. And then at the sink, once I rinse everything out, I will take more charcoal light with 30 volume and do a wet balayage to pop the ends and make them a little brighter. So, think outside of the box a little bit with that. You want to apply the mixture immediately after you mix it. That's with any lightening system. And then it's really important to fully saturate the hair surface. The more product you put on the hair, the more efficient the lightening will be. If you spread it too thin, it's not going to penetrate and get as deep into the cortex. So it won't lift as well unless it's fully saturated. That's really important when you're doing your double process or your global lightnings, because if you don't put it very generously on the roots like a mud pack, you might not get that same lift. Processing time will vary depending on the level of lift and the condition of the hair. You want to check your lightener every 10 to 15 minutes during processing. But the truth is, if you're using it on virgin hair that's not previously lightened or previously colored, you're probably going to wait a little while to check it. So it can be left on up to 60 minutes. However, most cases on your lighter level customers, anywhere between 45 and 60 minutes is going to be the general timing suggested. So some people will be ready in 45 minutes. Some people will take 60 minutes. You can apply heat when you're putting your lightener on. A lot of people immediately put them right under some sort of heat lamp or some sort of Climason. And I think that's great for darker levels, but most cases for me, I like to let them process for about 30 minutes with no heat, just room temperature. And then after I check it, I have a better picture of how much further I need to go. And if I feel like it's not lightening as quickly as I'd like it to, that point, I will apply heat. The heat cannot be higher than 100 degrees. So when you're using your processor or your Climazon, we recommend doing it on a low setting, because what you're doing is you're really applying that to heat up this cold zone, like this mid shaft. So when you're doing your balayages or when you're doing your foils, if you need to apply heat, let them process about 30 minutes and then heat them up for the last 15 or 20 minutes. And it should take you and give you that extra little nudge of lifting. That being said, as you can see in the pink box, it says it works best at body temperatures, which are between 95 and 105. So while application is close to the scalp, no heat is necessary for the scalp. When it's used far from the scalp, we recommend a mild heat source. And then after the product you think is ready, it's really difficult to check because Charcoalite is very dark gray and it's very heavily pigmented. So one of the ways I like to check it is, I'm going to bring my model in here a little closer. I will literally take, let's see, my strand of hair, and I will scrape the product off like a squeegee almost with the end of a comb to move it out of the way. And then if you wanted to take a wet towel to press some of that pigment off of the hair, you'll get a better reading if you do that. So when you're checking it, it's a little challenging to see through it. You actually have to remove it completely from the section that you're checking. And then if it's not ready, you want to reapply to that section. I typically, with my balayages, I typically check it where the product is applied more solid, so I can go back there and put that in. So that being said, once you feel it's ready, anywhere between 45 and 60 minutes, you will rinse it thoroughly until the water runs clear, and then you'll follow up with the Charcoalite shampoo and the conditioner as a post-blonding service, and we'll get into that a little later. Now, if you look at the developer guideline, it tells you on our developers, you'll see on the bottle, it says level and volume and percentage. You want to compare the volume and the percentage to what you're traditionally using. As far as the level, you're going to ignore this mostly because the level on our bottle is referring to our color line. When we have an entire line of color. Our developers are designed to work with our color and our lightener. When you're using a traditional developer with color, because the color level is calibrated to lift that many levels, like if I use a 7N on someone and I use 20 volume, I'm only going to get 2 levels of lift. If I use 10 volume, I get 1 level of lift, and so on. So the level on our bottle is null and void when it comes to the lightener. What you want to look at is the developer guideline on the screen. So 5 volume, because Charcoalite is higher in ammonia than color, you're getting more levels for your volumes. So if you look at your traditional developers with other manufacturers that you've used in the past, you're going to see the same consistency. 5 volume is equal to 1.5%. 10 volume is 3%, and so on. But those are the levels you can expect to get from your volumes. As you can see, if I look at 20 and 30 volume, 20, I'm getting up to 5 levels of lift. 30, I'm getting up to 7 levels of lift. It's the 40 volume that gives me the 9 levels of lift. That being said, if I'm a natural level 7, like I know Merit, who's present in the room right now, if I were using Charcoalite on Merit and I was trying to get her platinum, I know she's probably holding her hair up right now. If I'm trying to get her platinum, I wouldn't need 40 volume on her. I might be able to do that with a 20 or 30 because she's already naturally a level 7. And if I'm trying to get her to a 9 or a 10, I'm only going up a few levels. So the 20 or the 30 might get me there. I personally like 30 because it's more efficient. That being said, you're only going to need the 40 volume on darker levels, is my point. Okay, base range. If you look at the hair texture, fine, medium, and coarse, Sometimes you'll need to do a double application on coarse hair, right? So anyone who's a level 1 through a level 5, they're going to need 2 applications. And so if you look at the graph here, your first application, you would need to use 30 volume to get as much lift as possible. This is specifically when you're talking about a double process. And then your second application, you can use 30 volume, process her maybe up to 60 minutes. And then you want to wipe that product off or remove that product and then do a second application, but drop your developer down to 20 because you don't need the product as heavily ammoniated. So you'll use the 20 volume, which will activate it less ammoniated, and that will give you it'll take you the rest of the way there. If you're doing a single application, you can see fine and medium hair, 20 or 30 is always the way to go. Coarse hair, 40 volume. Again, that is not recommended for on scalp, but that's great for coarse hair when you're doing a balayage or a highlight, for instance, you can use 40 volume. Just be careful that the hair is not fragile when you're using 40 volume. I'm a little afraid of 40 volume when I don't need it. If the hair is really strong, I have no problem with it. On finer textures, I think it's a very dangerous game to play. So that being said, we'll move to the next slide. All right, so this is the let's do it. I'm going to skip over this one because this is what we're gonna. So these are, I'll just tell you about it. If we can go back to that, Merritt, for a minute. I'm just going to tell you about these applications because Merritt's probably going to share this document with you. So virgin applications, it's a step-by-step. The steps are the same exact steps as we are used to in all traditional color theory. A virgin application is always you're lightening about an inch away from the scalp first, doing that mid shaft, then you're doing your roots, then you're doing your ends. It just explains it more thoroughly. It's always do the roots second or last, depending on the customer. More importantly, I want to talk about the right side of the screen where it says darker hair color, where it says first application and second application. This is a little non-traditional, and I like this for this reason. So on the first application, you're going to mix the paste with 30 volume. You're going to apply it in fine sections. You're going to process 45 to 60 minutes. Where it says remove product, right under there, it says do not rinse in between applications. This was revolutionary for me because whenever I've done a second application, I've always shampooed or rinsed out my lightener and then put new lightener on. But what happens is when you lighten hair, you're raising the ammonia level inside the hair, right? So the pH scale is 0 to 14. 7 is neutral. Hair is naturally between a 4 and a 5. When I put lightener on the hair, I'm raising the pH of the hair up to about a 10 or an 11, right? When you rinse the hair with water, it brings that pH back down probably to neutral, right? So what happens is when you rinse it, you're bringing the pH down to neutral, and then you put lightener on and you're bringing the pH back up again. So what you're doing is you're compromising the elasticity of the hair by shocking the pH. So what we recommend for the second application, and I'll give you a for instance, if I have someone whose hair is in a foil, and I open my foil and I'm like, I need to put new product. You simply take a dry towel, not a wet towel, and you squeegee the product off with your dry towel and then put new product right on there with a lesser volume. In this case, I would say 20. 30 for the first application, 20 for the second. But when you're removing the product, you remove it with a dry towel and then put fresh product on there. This way, you're taking advantage of the fact that the pH is already raised. So the second application will happen more efficiently because it doesn't have to then raise the pH. It's already up high enough. And then your second application won't take nearly as long. And it maintains the strength and elasticity because you're not shocking the pH level. I kind of felt like that was a revolutionary idea, and it makes a lot of sense. So when you're doing your second application, I would challenge you to try that technique because I've tried it and it was a game changer for me. So that being said, pre-lightened hair and retouch application, Those are all the same exact steps you would take with any other lightening system, right? Pre-lightened hair, you're applying to maybe mid shaft and then roots, and then pull through for an additional 5 minutes just to pop out any residual warmth. Retouch application would be like someone with my hair, where you're just doing the roots, processing 45 to 60 minutes, rinsing it, and following with the Charcolite anti-brass shampoo and conditioner. So that's the let's do it section of your manual. And so it explains it in detail. Pay close attention to the first and second application, because that's a little different. The rest are a traditional application. That being said, Merritt, if we can go to the next slide. This is our how to check on processing. And then I want to cover the how to, the two sections on the how to. So let me check the timing really quick. I'll be right back because I can't see my clock. All right, I am 6 minutes over my 30 minutes. So I'm going to cover the how to, and then I'm going to save the post-maintenance, the post-service and maintenance for after I do my balayage. So how to check on processing. Again, choose a small section of hair and remove the product by running a moist towel down the hair strands or wiping it with moist cotton. I like to squeegee the product off first, and then I take a moist towel and I rub some of that graphite pigment so I can see what's happening. In some cases, it'll look kind of green. That means there's yellow in the hair, and the blue-gray pigment is mixing with the yellow to create a greenish cast. Keep in mind, the hair is not turning green. It's just the graphite is mixing with it to make it appear that way. What that means is there's still yellow in there. So you want to process it a little longer. That graphite rinses away. It doesn't stay there. If you take it away too soon while the hair looks greenish, you're just going to see yellow when the graphite's rinsed out. Graphite pigment is formulated to neutralize brassy tones on levels 9 and 10. So you're not going to get that bright white blonde unless you get them all the way up to a 9 or a 10. And you might notice in some cases on previously lightened hair, like mine, if I were to put Charcolite paste on my roots and I overlap here, my ends might turn sort of like a powder blue color. And this is how we talk about removing the unwanted hues. You guys at Salon Shop have the Charcolite paste, but you also have something called Deco paste. Deco paste is like Charcolite's little sister, right? So it is a white paste. It's a paste just like Charcolite. It does have a blend of oils, but it does not have the bond plex. It has acai and argan oil. It lifts 6 to 8 levels. So it's great for highlights. It's great for balayages on lighter shades. It's also great for double processes on lighter shades because it's lower in ammonia than Charcolite. So this is a traditional white lightener, but it's a paste like Charcolite. As you can see it coming out. If I put it on my hand, it's a traditional white paste. So if my hair or the ends of my hair were to turn blue from the graphite pigments, what I would do is I would take a little bit of my Deco paste, a little bit of 10 volume, and a little bit of our Charcolite anti-brass shampoo, which has the bond plex in it and the lower pH. What that's going to do is it's going to create what we call a bleach bath, and it's going to help you remove that bluish tinge from the hair in a gentle way. Process it for maybe 5 to 10 minutes at the sink. Do it when the hair is wet. That being said, here's another pro tip that I like. Charcolite is a dark gray paste. And when I'm using Charcolite on previously highlighted hair, sometimes I will mix equal parts of Charcolite with Deco paste to reduce that gray and make it a little more pale and lighter. Sometimes you don't need as much cancelization. So you can mix the two together in the same bowl, and that will give you a less heavily pigmented version of Charcolite, which is safer. Keep in mind, the Deco paste lifts 6 to 8 levels and the Charcolite lifts 9 levels. So it's going to meet somewhere in the middle, maybe like an 8 or 8.5. So it's going to reduce the strength a little bit, but it's going to reduce the pigment more importantly. So when you don't need it to be so heavily pigmented, you have an option to mix them together. Again, if I were doing it, it's always 1 part lightener, 2 parts developer. So I would do a 1/2 ounce to a 1/2 ounce, which makes 1 ounce, and then 2 ounces of developer. And then of course we have Deco Max, which is our traditional blue powder. So Deco Max lifts up to 10 levels. If you have your favorite high lift lightener, this is going to be comparable to that. It's a light blue powder. It's actually a little darker blue than most. It's a blue powder that lifts up to 10 levels. And this is perfect for removing artificial color. For instance, box dye, or if you have a customer that you've been doing a single process on and she's got layers and layers of that, and you want to pre-treat it before you use the Charcolite, you can use the Deco Max first with 20 volume and the shampoo, the anti-brass shampoo, and do a bleach bath on that previously colored hair to pop it first, wash that out, and then go ahead and do your Charcolite balayage or your Charcolite highlight. That kind of gives it a jump start. That being said, I think that's it for the slides, correct? Aside from the post-maintenance, post-service and maintenance slide. Do you want me to? Yeah. So let's save the post-service and maintenance for after I put my foils in. I'm just going to take 2 seconds to get rid of this from my hand. I'm going to walk away from the camera. I'm going to come right back and have my model set up. If you guys need to refresh your wine and get a refill, you might want to do that now. Literally 2 minutes.
And if anybody has any questions, then you can type the questions in the chat box or in the questions and answers box, and we will answer them during the webinar.
Okay, so I'm back. You saw the actions and the features and benefits of the Charcolite. Now I'm going to show you my express balayage technique. As you can see, my model has what we affectionately all know as the money piece in the front. And then she's got some deep dimension here. And then she's pretty solid on the ends, right? So this is like a traditional request for balayage, right? You have these deep dimensional pieces. You have your solid in the front. And then you have your platinumy ends, right? She's like a living mermaid without the body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take her little sister, whose hair is a little shorter. She's not quite as grown up. And I'm going to start my technique. And I'm going to show you my money piece first. I'm going to measure my Charcolite. I have my scale here. I always like to use a scale. It's really difficult to do it in like a measuring cup, because once you get that paste in there, you can't, you have to scrape it out. Really important. I don't like to mix my lightener with a whisk. I prefer a spatula, like a miniature, you know, the skinny spatulas. I prefer that over a whisk, because when you whisk Charcolite, you're whisking more oxygen into the product, and it's going to cause it to expand a little bit. So rather than put more oxygen in there, I'm just going to put about 1 ounce of product into my bowl. Charcolite comes out like a smooth paste. If it's not smooth, then you should be massaging the bag a little more, because the oils need to warm up and get blended with the paste. So I put 1 ounce of product in my bowl. I'm going to use 40 volume today because it's a mannequin. One ounce of product, 2 ounces of developer. And that gives you a substantial amount of product. It gives you 4.5 ounces of lightener. I'm mixing and folding. When you first see it, it's going to be kind of loose, but it thickens within the first 5 minutes. By the time you wipe off your spatula and you set your station together, it'll be thick enough. I'm bringing my mannequin forward just to show you. So when you think about a money piece, you always want your money piece to be from the temple to the temple. My mannequin parts her hair off center. That's what she told me before we started. So I'm going to take her temple to temple and cut that right in half down the center. So I'm going to take this piece from the center of her head to the temple, and I'm going to go about a ½ inch back. Can you guys hear me? I have my voice so good because I have my voice away from the camera.
On the way at some point.
Okay, I have to remember to turn around and talk to the microphone. Okay, so about a ½ inch section back from the hairline. And then I have from her temple to the middle. And this is a slice, it's not a weave. It's a full entire slice. I'm going to take my foil. I just want you guys to know this is really fun to figure out the logistics of how to do this on a camera. I'm going to put my foil behind my section and flip my section back. Bring her head down. See that? I'm going to take my charcoal light and about halfway down the section, I'm going to saturate it. See if I can bring her down a little lower for you. There we go. As you can see, I have it saturated about halfway down. Once I saturate that midsection, I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to feather it forward towards the roots of the hair. You're almost teasing the hair with the tint brush. So if you think about a teasy light, it's similar. You're feathering it all the way forward, and then whatever hair got teased, just lay it back down. But what more importantly, what you can see is if I take her off of here, you can see that it's sort of feathered close to the root, right? So do not put more product on when you're doing that feathering. What you want to do is you want to take the saturated part from the midsection and feather it all the way up close to the root, as close to the root as possible without saturating it too much. Because in a traditional balayage, the piece that you're painting the top part of it, but the underneath doesn't get lightener on it, right? So that's kind of what you're emulating here, but in a foil. Once you do that, you're going to turn your mannequin around and you're going to, from the mid shaft all the way to the ends, you're going to really saturate that product. Really saturate that, because the ends are going to be a more solid version than the roots. Once you have that saturation, you're going to take a second foil and cover that completely. And then I'm going to bring her back around. And I'm going to flip my foils forward. Now you can see on this side, if you remember, the other side was very solid. This side is more feathered. You can see how it looks a little streaky, but the product didn't go all the way through. So the other side of my section, the part that's closest to her face, is more solid in product saturation. Do you see that? Can you see the shininess of it, Merritt?
Yes, we see.
Okay, I just want to make sure you can see what I'm seeing. And then when you close this, this side is less heavily saturated until I get to the mid shaft. If you look inside the foil, you can really see that inside is saturated. But you can see it's more highlighty in the back piece of that section than it is in the front piece. Once you do that, you simply close your foil and do the one next to it. So again, a slice about a ½ inch away from the head. I'm going to put my foil behind my section and flip my section back. Voila. Going to take my Charcolite paste and I'm going to saturate the mid shaft. And then I'm going to feather it forward and go as close to the hairline as possible. And my brush, my color brush, is actually teasing the root a little bit. So I'm just going to lay some of that back. Remember not to be heavy-handed when you're feathering, because if you're pressed down with too much pressure, you're going to push the product through to the other side. However, when you get to the mid shaft and ends, you can press as much as you need to, because you really want a full saturation. Once I do that, I cover with a second foil. And I bring it forward and I check it again. Now, if you look here on this section, this is the fun part for me. If you look here on this section, some of my saturation went through on one piece, but it didn't go on the rest of it. If you're not happy, but yet my ends are fully saturated. If you're not happy with the way that product came through, you can take a clean brush and diffuse that a little bit to create a more feathered version of that. So now that streaky line, I kind of broke it up a little bit. Once you're happy with that, I'm actually going to replace this front foil because I messed it up while I was showing it to you. I don't normally flip them back and forth when I'm doing this as a service. So, but in this case, I wanted to show you what it looks like. So put my front foil back on, I flip it forward, I close it up. And those are your money pieces. You can do them on the side as well. So you could do one here, one here, one here, one here. That's what I did on my model. What I wanted to show you about that is on my model, I did a money piece, the same exact technique. I did one here, and then I did them on her sides right there. But what I really wanted to show you was when you look at the money piece here, in the front, it's got a lot of color. It's like very highlighting. But when you look at it from the back, it's a more diffused version of itself. You see that little dark streak right there? That was the part when I showed you in the back where it looked like there was a streak and then there was dark and then there was a streak. So it tends to not look as much like a slice. Typically when we do a slice and we do a weave, you can see the lines. With this, it gives you that solid in the front and the more diffused in the back. And then it looks more like natural hair that got light from the sun, as opposed to a big slice of hair. So that's kind of what I like about that money piece. It's a fun technique. I will admit I did not invent it. I saw it on TikTok and I thought, I'm going to alter that to my own. I saw someone doing it on TikTok and I'm like, how can I do that in a way that I can do it with foil so that I can show it back and forth? So that's my favorite my favorite latest money piece technique. That being said, My express balayage is essentially, we're going to think of the head as, think of an orange. If you have an orange and you're looking down at an orange, you see the slices like this. I'm going to think of my head as an orange. I'm going to part my client where she parts her hair, and I'm going to start taking these sections. I call them orange slices. That's one. And then it's two. And then it's three, and so forth, right? Think about your client on the left side and on the right side. I'm sorry, on the left side and the right side. The first two are so important, more important than any of them, because we've put the money pieces in, so they're going to be in there processing the longest. So each section behind the money pieces, we have to alternate from left side to right side. So I do the left side first, then the right side, then I come back to the left side, then I come back to the right side. So I'm doing one and one, one and one, one and one. So by the time I get to the back, I'm meeting in the middle, which means that all of this stuff went on first. So it's going to have the brighter reflections than the ones in the back, which is exactly how I achieved the dimension in this model. So she's really bright in the front and she's got a little less. I processed her for about an hour. So how do I do this part? This part's really fun because I call this vertical balayage. You can see my section is a vertical line. Then I'm going to put her head down all the way. When I put her head down, my line now becomes horizontal, right? When you're balayaging someone's hair, typically, when you balayage across the head in a horizontal line, you pull the section out and you do a series of V's and W's or feathering. And the hardest part, and if you tell me this doesn't happen to you, I'm going to tell you that you're probably not being truthful with yourself, but we always have a hard time getting rid of that blend, right? Like getting rid of those pieces or those lines. But when you're balayaging on a vertical section, it's more forgiving because I take my section out. Now I'm moving it forward to her head. I'm going to put a foil, this entire section, as giant as it is. I'm going to saturate it halfway down to paste it to the foil. And then I'm going to feather up higher on an angle. So my feathering happens on an angle this way. So higher up, closer to her part line is here. Higher up, closer to her part line, and then down on an angle. Saturate my ends to get a full saturation. But if you look at my feathering, when I take the foil out, it's only on the back side of the section. So I'll give you a visual of what that looks like. When I cover it, and I lift it back, you can see it's not quite as solid. The product saturation is not quite as solid. I've got one coming up here, and I can actually go in there with a clean brush and diffuse it a little bit if I need to. And this is what I like about balayaging in this flip-flop section, because you can fix the other side more easily and then close your foil, right? So more importantly, I'm higher up in the back of the section and lower, or higher up on this side of the section, which is close to her part line, and lower on this side of the section. So when I lift her head up, my balayage is higher near her part line. Well, this side actually shows it better. My balayage is higher near her part line, but lower in the underneath sections of her hair. Let's see. So that's what gives you that deep dimension on the inside with these strategic bright pieces throughout the top of her head. Like that one, for instance, right there, and that one. So I'm going to do this one on this side. This one, again, her head is up. Her head is upright. So you see my orange slice section. I'm going to put her head all the way down, and I'm going to do her section this way in the downward motion. I'm going to take my foil, again, giant sections, because really the only part that you want to saturate is from the mid shaft to the ends. And it's really easy to get the product saturated in there. Everything from the mid shaft up, you're feathering. I'm going to take my product, I'm going to saturate it at the mid shaft of my section. There I am. And then I'm going to feather up towards my part line. And then your feathering should happen on a diagonal. And then you're saturating your ends completely. I know that you're having a hard time seeing this. Let me get her higher. Ta-da! So I have my feathering happening on an angle. This part is closer to her part. This part is closer to the bottom. It's actually like right here. So my balayage from here to here starts down pretty low, but my balayage up here starts pretty high. So when I say that doing a vertical balayage is more forgiving than doing a horizontal balayage, what I mean is when I lift her head up and I pull these pieces out, here's my angled feathering. When these pieces fall down, any pieces that don't blend quite as well as some of the others sort of fall down and stagger. So you really don't get a horizontal line. It's vertical. So as you pull it out, it kind of steps down. So it's very forgiving. I call it cheating. But who doesn't like to cheat, right? Sometimes we're in a rush and we don't always have time to spend, and none of us are perfect. People think, you know, I want the same exact hair color I had before. Well, you and I both know that hair color is like an oil painting. No two are exactly alike. Each time I balayage, highlight, or lighten your hair, it's going to be slightly different because it's customized. So in this case, following these patterns, you're doing the same exact patterns, but you're customizing how high you're going to go on the top of your section versus your lower section. You might not have to do as much solid stuff on the bottom. So you might be able to just do a center section and just paint that feathering up there and not have to do the rest of her head. So that being said, I did one on the left side. I did one on the left side, one on the right side. The rest of her head is essentially going to be me alternating back and forth from one side to the other. When I get to the back of her head, I know what you're thinking. Now that the hairline drops down behind the ear, this is too long of a section to do that crazy stuff I just did, right? Because balayaging in large sections like that scares some people. In this case, what I do is I start taking my sections on an angle. So that's 1, And when I balayage this section, I'm going to bring it forward slightly. I'm going to use her neck as my balayage board. You could use a balayage board. In this case, I'm using a mannequin, so she has pretty much a stiff neck already. Saturate your ends, and then feather your product closer to the hairline. So it's still that angled feathering. If you put too much product on, you can go in there with a clean brush and spread it around a little bit. I still feathered in an angle, but the outside of it is higher up. So when she pulls her hair back, she has some higher dimension up here on the outside layer of her hair, but not on the inside. Do you see that? There's her dimension on the outside of my section is right there. There it is. But on the inside, where I feathered down lower, which is here, that's where that is. So it gives her that inside dimension. You know, we do a lot of this stuff where we lighten hair and then we put a second product on as a shadow root. And as somebody who's like very specific about things, I feel like, well, why am I going to lighten it and then shadow root it if I just avoid lightening the roots and essentially creating, you know, a shadow root by the way that I strategically balayage, then I don't have to do 3 steps. I can just lighten and tone. So that's the one section. My other section is going to be another angled section. And I'll do the same thing. And then I'll go back here. I'll do another one and another one. So that's 4 from the occipital up here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then here, you just break this into 3. 1, 2, and 3. And that's your express balayage. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sections plus your money pieces. So that's essentially a 30-minute installation. It might take you longer the first time out. And I would encourage you, because I won't be there standing over you if you try it, use common sense, especially with the money piece, right? So always, 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 when you're doing a balayage or a money piece, I'm just making a section up randomly so you can see it. Always, 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 it's very important to start applying the product low. The lower, the better, because you have all this space to feather. And when you're feathering the top side of the section. Once you apply the product mid shaft or lower and then saturate your ends, you're feathering. It's a little messy, but I just want to show you an example. See how there's a lot of product on that section and it goes pretty high up, but because I feathered lightly, when I cover this with another foil and flip it this way, it's not nearly as saturated close to, well, it's hard to see here, but it's not nearly as saturated close to the root on that side. So be very creative, but use common sense when you're trying this technique out. And some of you probably already do this technique, and maybe it's not as revolutionary as I think it is. But I found like it was a fun way to do balayage. And more importantly, it's time saver, because let's face it, spending 3 hours on one service, it's not a best use of our time, right? I like to overlap my customers, especially when I'm lightening their hair, because most processing is 45 to 60 minutes. So if I can do your installation in 45 minutes, I can do another one while you're processing and make twice the amounts of money. So it's definitely an income stream when you can do a balayage in a fast way. So that being said, that was my technique. I'm going to look in the chat unless Merritt has some questions for me, so I don't have to find them.
There's a lot of hellos in the chat, I can see. But there are a couple of questions as well. For example, there's one from Art Joms, and he asks, are there situations when you need to use classic acid toner after the light?
Yes. So, and I'll explain that. Why don't we, let's go to the slide where we talk about post-service and maintenance, because that's going to address directly about whether to use a toner or not to use a toner. Because the answer to that question is, you can certainly choose to tone the hair. We make an entire color line that we recommend using to tone. You can tone with any of your favorite demi-permanent hair colors. If we can isolate the one slide by itself that says post-service and maintenance, so it's less confusing. It's this one, and then make it single.
Just a second.
Yep. Perfect. So we'll stop at the shampoo. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Even better. Perfect. So post-service and maintenance. So the answer to the question, can you take away the black part at the bottom and just make it all white? Can enlarge it enough to do that? Perfect. Perfect. Right. So the answer to the question is, if you choose to tone it versus not choosing to tone it. So here's the rub, right? And this is just a little bit of a color theory lesson, which you already know. I'm just going to give you the difference between one versus the other. So a traditional toner, which is a demi-permanent or a semi-permanent hair color, is typically a gloss or a demi. And those are a color that you mix with a demi-permanent developer, right? That's a color molecule that's larger, and then your developer, and when you mix them together and they go inside the hair, the molecules explode. Right? So think about it like this. It's like opening a bottle of glitter in a room, right? The color molecules get inside the hair, they explode, and they fill in the gaps in the cortex. That's how toners, traditional toners or glosses work, right? So they anchor themselves in there a little better. Charcoalite is a toner in the sense that it is also depositing color in there, but it's not an oxidative or an exploding molecule. It's a filling in of the emptiness. So when you lighten the hair, you're essentially emptying out the melanin in the cortex, and the graphite pigments are filling in where those spaces are, but it's not an exploding molecule. So let's just talk about my balayage customer. So I put her foils in, I process her for 60 minutes. When I take all her foils out, she's just kind of raw lightened. I'm going to take her to the sink, as you can see on step one, because this is a step one and a step two. You have to do them in tandem with each other. Post-service is the most important, specifically designed to be used following a blonding service. And you can also use it at home. But for post-blonding, let's talk about this. Your hair on the pH scale was 4 or 5, and I raised the alkaline levels all the way up to a 10 or an 11. Our Restorative Bond Plex shampoo has a pH of 4. So what it does is I rinse the lightener out. Your alkaline levels are high. The shampoo itself has the oil-based Bond Plex and the graphite pigments. So the Bond Plex oil and the graphite pigments are being delivered inside the cortex of the hair. The Bond Plex is restoring moisture and filling in weaknesses in the disulfide chain, as well as lowering the pH level in the environment internally. So the cortex of the hair, it's lowering the pH level, which is then shrinking the elasticity back to strong again. So think of it like a piece of wet pasta versus a piece of dry pasta, right? The pH of 4 is strengthening or lowering the pH level, which is restoring elasticity and making the hair stronger. While it's doing that, it's delivering graphite and bond plex. The graphite is not an exploding molecule like a toner or a glossing service. So it's going to sit in there and fill in the gaps, but it's not going to be anchored in there as much as a demi-permanent. So if you get your client blonde enough, you will not have to tone her. If you do not lift her all the way to a 9 or a 10, and there's still some yellow in there, and you choose to use a demi-permanent, it's totally safe to use your favorite demi-permanent that you're using now. There's no reason you can't. And you can still follow with the anti-brass shampoo. So if the answer to the question in the chat, if I choose to use a gloss or a toner, in addition to the Charcolite collection, you would do it this way. You would rinse the lightener out. You would shampoo them with the anti-brass shampoo because you're restoring the pH balance to the hair, which is then going to make your gloss or your toner take more evenly from root to end because you've just evened out the porosity. Also, because of the graphite pigments, it pre-toned it for you. So if you're used to using something like, I'll just pull out a formula because I've been doing hair for long enough, I know every color line. Let's just say my favorite toner is 9V or 9T, right? This shampoo is going to pre-tone it for you. It's going to fill in the gaps with the graphite pigments to provide a cooler background. So when you do put your toner on, it's already filled slightly and your toner will take more evenly. Essentially, because of the pH level, it's also restoring porosity and you'll take more evenly as well. So you may not have to be so careful in your, a lot of people take 9V and clear to dilute it so it doesn't turn purple. You may not have to do that with this. So you may not even have to tone it, but if you choose to, then by all means, change the way you formulate because you're going to be double toning them essentially with our shampoo. That being said, our shampoo is not the end of the story. It's, when you compare it to purple shampoo, they're not the same. Most purple shampoos have a slightly higher pH. They're typically around neutral because what they do is they pop the gaps in the cuticle and deposit direct dye molecules in between them. So they work topically. Most purple shampoos work that way. That's why wherever your hair is more porous, it really builds up and turns purple, right? Our shampoo has a pH of 4. So it mostly is designed to repair and restore elasticity and pH levels. And the graphite and the bond plex are the secondary features. However, our conditioner is going to be more pigmented and similar to your purple shampoo because it has a pH of 3. So when you think about this on the day of lightening, you're raising the alkaline levels by lightening the hair. You're slowly lowering the alkaline levels with the pH of 4. And then the pH of 3 in the conditioner is actually depositing that graphite pigment on the outer layer. So the shampoo put the graphite inside the hair. The conditioner is putting another layer of graphite on top of that, but because it has a pH of 3, it's shutting down the cuticle and trapping it in there. So essentially, the hair is open, the shampoo goes in, restores the bonds, adds graphite to it. The conditioner shuts everything down and puts another layer on top of it. Both of them also have the bond plex, and the bond plex action in the shampoo and conditioner is designed to re-strengthen and restore bonds that might have been compromised and also add more moisture back into the hair. So these two post blonding are going to change the game for you when you're rinsing out your lightening surfaces. And I would even challenge you to use them on people that you don't use Charcolite on. Use your favorite lightening system and use this as a post-blonding service. And I guarantee you, the texture and the elasticity and the condition of the hair is going to be greatly improved just from these two on the day of the lightening. And then you send them home with the 8.5 ounce and they will continue. A good question. Can we recommend the DIFIABA post service in the salon as a separate service? Absolutely, because what you're essentially doing is you're providing bond repair and toning at the same time. Our shampoo, our conditioner, if you look at the very bottom of the screen, there's a pink circle that says leave on 10 minutes or more. In order for you to get the most bond repair and the most toning, that little circle where it says leave on 10 minutes, the conditioner is what deposits the most pigment. It's also what seals the cuticle. That doesn't happen instantly. It takes 10 minutes for that to happen. So if you wanted to, I'm assuming the question in the chat was adding it as a post service. If you want to upcharge for it, by all means, you're providing toning, you're providing bond repair, and you're providing cuticle repair. So the shampoo is giving you internal repair. The conditioner is giving you external repair. So you're repairing the hair. You're building the disulfide bonds and reconnecting them essentially like a bond builder, and you're toning with the graphite pigments. So if you wanted to make it a separate service and say, okay, we're going to do your blonding, and now we're going to do your post blonding, instead of we're going to do your blonding and then we're going to do your toner and then we'll do a conditioner. It's that same thing. So by all means, if you want to call it a separate service, it is a separate service. It's a post-blonding service, but it's also an at-home maintenance. So again, if some clients want to do more special hair care service, can I apply more mask or ampoules? Absolutely, you can. So the question is, can I apply more mask or ampoules? I can't read the rest of that one. But so if I go back to the last one about applying more mask, you can absolutely do that. And here's what I would do. I would do the shampoo first. If I want to do, like, I'm assuming you mean a mask from another brand. If you wanted to do a separate treatment in addition to the post blonding service, you can shampoo the hair first because that's going to equalize the pH and the porosity and elasticity. Then do your favorite mask as a repair treatment. Then do the anti-brass conditioner as your last step because it'll seal everything in. So shampoo your favorite mask, rinse your favorite mask out, put the anti-brass conditioner on at the very last step and rinse that out. And make sure it sits on for 10 minutes. There was a question, Merit, about, I have to read it.
You mean from Yanda?
It was a question about doing the roots in 20 volume.
Yeah, it says, my client came to salon for root touch-up. Usually I use basic cream lightener with 20 volume, but at this time I wanted to use Charcolite. I did the mix with Charcolite with 20 volume and 10 volume, and it turned out really blue. Why? She says,
did it turn out blue on the roots or on the ends?
Yeah, that's a good question. She says she didn't overlap, only roots.
Only roots. And so 20 volume on the roots would have been the way to go because you're trying to get lift and warmth. The blue is really just a stain left over from the graphite, and some hair, if it's very fine, it can happen like that. Or if it's very porous, it can happen that way. Essentially, that happens a lot right around the hairline because that hair lifts lighter and level. It is fine hair. Yes, that's what I thought. So on fine hair, it's very narrow in diameter, so it doesn't have a lot. It doesn't have a long way to go to lighten. So wherever she went the lightest, it might have left behind that blue stain. So that's a perfect way to take a white lightener like Deco paste with 10 volume and the anti-brass shampoo and make a bleach bath. So lightener, 10 volume, and the shampoo. Make a bleach bath and just go over where the blue is. It's the same concept. If you think about toning someone's hair or doing a gloss service, sometimes when you do a gloss service, your hairline takes more purple or more blue or more dark than the rest of the hair because the hair is finer. So it sounds like when you rinse the lightener out, she's saying yes, someone's saying yes. Sometimes when you rinse the lightener out, that blue stays behind because the hair had it was already a level 9 or 10 before this was a level 9 or 10. So it's stained because the hair was empty. That's what happens. Once you get to a level 10, your hair is empty. Next time I did mix with charcolate and white paste and the outcome was beautiful. Look at that. See? So it works. I'm not lying. I like that I'm not lying.
Super. We have time for one more question. Does anybody have a question? Please type it in the chat box or somebody who is here in the room with us.
Also, if you have any questions or comments about my balayage technique, I know it wasn't completely revolutionary, but I was hoping to give you something quicker and easier to think about it.
How long does the balayage technique take you in the salon?
It takes me 30 minutes to put those in.
But the whole process?
Well, 30 minutes to put the foils in, 1 hour to process, and then I do my post service with the shampoo and the conditioner. So, but what I do is I put her foils in and then I take someone else while she's processing because she's sitting for an hour and I don't like to stay still. So I take another one.
I'm not sure if it's our Wi-Fi or have we lost you? We can't hear you.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
If you can hear us, put a thumbs up.
I can hear you.
You can hear us?
I can hear you.
Seems that this must be the end of it, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's been an hour and a half, and I thank everybody who participated here. And
they hear me.
And
yep.
We can see that it must be something from our side, but thank you, Frank, for this evening. And
thank you.
Enjoy your morning there in California. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. All the other ones that on Facebook that can hear me, I appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you guys again.